Hey guys, it's Rhonda and I'm back with another Disney video, and today I have a treat for you. I was able to sit down and interview Academy Award winner, special effects makeup artist Joel Harlow. You'll know his work from the Pirates of the Caribbean films, Black Panther, Alice in Wonderland, Jungle Cruise, Haunted Mansion. His body of work is vast, and so we were able to sit down and share a conversation about his recent work with the Haunted Mansion franchise, and following will be an audio recording of the phone interview I had. If you're interested in reading the full-length interview, I have the link for that below. I really hope you enjoy this. And Joel was so amazing. He answered all of my questions plus more. So enjoy the interview, guys, and I'll talk to you later. Specifically talk about the Haunted Mansion film, because it's current and it's Halloween season and all that. And okay, so it's a Disney classic and a fan favorite. So you managed to maintain the classic Disney theme while adding, the Joel Harlow aesthetic, I should say. Was the concept initially done like on paper or graphic design, or were there actual molds created?
Well, you're talking about the designing process?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, the designing process was done both two-dimensionally and three-dimensionally. And when I say three-dimensionally, I'm not talking about traditional, like, hands-to-clay sculpture. Mm-hmm. I'm talking more three-dimensional sculpting programs like ZBrush, which allows me to sculpt in the computer and then output maquettes or designs so that I can show production either the 3D outputted designs so they can hold them and turn them around, or I can show them a digital photograph of a 3D design, which allows me to color it and shade it any way I want.
Nice. Okay.
But I had a few other designers on the show. Once I got the contract to do the project, I brought on some of the folks that I've worked with, quite a few times, like, my go-to guys for designing. Because, no matter what I wanted to bring to it, there's always something that you're not thinking about. That's why it's nice to have other designers on the show as well.
Right.
On any show, really, because they come up with ideas that you may not have thought of. Sometimes they can be better than, the ideas that I'm thinking of.
Right. You get a well-rounded
yeah, you just get a lot of options because, beyond that, you don't know what production wants. I didn't know what Justin wanted as far as the look of the ghosts.
Right.
So it was nice to be able to come in with a bunch of different design aesthetics and also a bunch of different approaches to the designs themselves.
Okay, perfect. That leads me into my next question about, the curation process. Like, okay, from concept, like you're talking about, and then to director approval to the actual design. So the director is looking at all of your 3D examples, and is he the one that makes the final choice?
Yeah. I mean, certainly with a Disney project, there's a lot of eyes on the characters, because, especially a ride like that, a ride movie, a movie based on a theme park attraction. Mm-hmm. Those date back, and a lot of people have fond memories of those. So you don't want to veer too far away from what people have grown up enjoying.
Right.
So, and I'm one of those people, but certainly when we presented designs, or when I presented designs, I was presenting, primarily to Justin Simeon, the director, and then, based on, his input, I believe they would go to, they'd just get the once over from, Disney, the Disney producers.
Mm-hmm.
But primarily, he was the one. It was his film, so he was the one deciding whether or not a design was,
right,
appropriate or it was back to the drawing table.
Right. And how long is that process, roughly?
Well, I mean, for some of the characters, it was longer. Certainly for the Hatbox Ghost, it was longer. For some of the other characters, it was really like one round. I'd submit a round of like 7, 8 designs, and he would pick one, and that's what I would go with.
Okay.
And I had a very small sculpting crew on this. It was myself, Richard Alonzo, who I've worked with many, many times, and then Rod Maxwell, who has become one of my core people at Morphology. So we sculpted everything, just us three.
Wow.
And inevitably, when you're sculpting something based on a design, especially a design that was not based on an actor specifically,
mm-hmm.
It's going to change. It's like putting a square peg into a round hole. It's like, you're picking out sort of the highlights of the design, but you're making it work on someone else's face.
Right. So if I'm correct, you reimagined 7. Was it 7 of the attractions more memorable ghosts?
The 3 hitchhikers, Phineas, Gus, and Ezra.
Mm-hmm.
It was the bride. It was the hatchet ghost, which could be considered to be the butler. It was the mummy, and then the Hatbox ghost. So yes.
Okay. So these are characters, Disney legends like Mark Davis, who I love, and Claude Coates, they all helped to create all of these, based on Raleigh Crump's Museum of the Weird, which I love. And Ken Anderson kind of had this lore, that he created this whole thing. And so, no pressure there, right? But
Mark Davis has been an influence on me since I started doing art, so I didn't have to dig too deep to find a Mark Davis influence because it was already there. I mean, it's informed my style, since I developed a quote unquote style,
Yeah.
I actually sat when I did the first Pirates film. I did actually it was the second Pirates film, I believe. I did a series of rings for Disney, and they had an event at Disneyland where I got to sit on a panel with Alice Davis, when we talked about the ride at the movie.
Wow. That must have been amazing.
That was pretty great.
Yeah, sure. I mean, because I love your childhood story of, I think it was a skull that you got from Disneyland, and you started molding things and putting an eyeball in it or whatever, and this kind of like sparked your interest with special effects makeup. Oh, and then, to come full circle and work on the Pirates franchise, that's amazing. Yeah. Full circle, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel very fortunate. I've been able to work on several, attraction-based films, the Pirates, certainly, Haunted Mansion, both Haunted Mansions, including the one previous to this one. Mm-hmm. Jungle Cruise,
right.
If you can consider it, an attraction-based film, I don't know if it really fits, but, the Alice in Wonderland movies.
Sure. But so in that sense, because Disney is known for perfection, and like, their attention to detail. So working on these attraction films, how does this like influence your creative process? Are you pulling from, like you said, the original? Are you trying to, with Haunted Mansion, it's true to the attraction, but like with Jungle Cruise and things like that, how much of the original attraction's influence is in your creative process?
Well, I mean, certainly I want to be faithful to the ride, but at the same time, I kind of want to put my own stamp on it. So, my desire to sort of make the ghosts feel more real, a little more grounded in reality, was something that was kind of driving, my aesthetic as we started getting into the sculpture and the design of this. But I did want to remain faithful. It's like, especially for the hitchhikers, the three hitchhiking ghosts. It's like, I mean, they leave. You leave the ride with them as your last impression, other than the little bride on the stair on the way out.
Little Leota.
Those are the ones that actually sit with you in your car. So those, to me, are of paramount importance. So I wanted to make sure I got all those right. And, another influence on my artistic style, is Basil Gogos, who is, he did a lot of covers for Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine, and he's got a very specific painting style. He painted a photograph of Johnny as Barnabas Collins, for the film when we were working on the film, and I got a copy of that, which was nice. But his style is very sort of bold color designs and bold color sort of variations within a face. So, I mean, the sad thing about this film is that you don't really get to see the characters the way that they were on set, which is, vibrant and, detailed and hyper detailed. Because there's an optical effect over them because they're ghosts.
Right.
They're not zombies, they're ghosts. So there is going to obviously be some sort of digital effect that will,
enhance,
for me, diminish my artwork and the artwork of the folks that worked on the project. But, ultimately, in the context of the film, if they present it as they did in the film, like they did on set, then, it would take you out of the movie because it doesn't make any sense.
Right. So, in speaking to that, is it true that you integrated like a fluorescent pigment into the silicone when you made the prosthetics?
Yeah. I mean, they were fully capable of glowing, under black light and UV light. So, I mean, it would have been a pretty amazing look if they, if Justin wanted to go that way, if that's the movie that he was making. But, I'm still very happy with them. And I'll just keep that technique for something else. It's like there's no shortage of things that I could use that on.
Interesting. Yes.
But in person, I mean, they were pretty amazing.
Oh, I'm sure. And now these are just, are they full casts or are they pieces? Like, would you ever put them on display? Or is it just
I mean, I have some here in my studio.
Oh, fabulous.
Certainly, that surround me on a daily basis. But, yeah, I mean, it's tricky, because you sign an NDA and you're not allowed to show this and you're not allowed to show that, even though, you can go on Instagram and, people that worked for me on the show are posting things. But, I'll let that be their battle to fight if Disney Legal comes calling. For me, I haven't shown anything. I've submitted any designs that I want to share and any finished pieces that I want to share with, Disney so that they can vet the designs. I've done some interviews for magazines, that some of the designs I've submitted, I'm sure will be in. But as far as releasing images, I take those NDAs very seriously because, it's basically you're signing away your life, if you let something out.
Well, and I mean, it's integrity, and you're working
Yeah.
on important projects, so there's no need, they can see your work. Your work speaks for itself in the films, and
Yeah. I mean, if a producer wants to, I'll certainly share it with a producer because I can trust that they're not going to post it.
right.
It's, the thing about like Instagram to me and posting things to me, it's like I much preferred the days when there was like a makeup artist magazine or a prosthetics magazine where you could submit photos, you could send in photos, do an interview, and then those photos would be shared in a publication because has more validity to me. Instagram, it's like something pops up on your feed. It's like, yeah, that's cool for a week, and then maybe somebody reposts it, but it's got a shelf life.
Right.
On a in a publication, it doesn't. You can always go back to the publication, and I guess if you wanted to, you could always go scroll back through years and years of photographs on Instagram, but who's got the time to do that?
Yeah, and it's different. It's different if it's in print. Digital is one thing, but to own something, have something in your hands, books and like your book
Yeah.
the Star Trek book. I mean, it's an art itself. I mean, Instagram is a lot of people, like you say, it's a shelf life. It has, a 10 to 15 second thrill, and then
Yeah.
people pass it by and move on to the next thing. You have it.
It's like it's something you've spent, like a year on, let's just say, or let's just, 3 months on, 4 months on making, blood, sweat, and tears. And here it is. You throw it up on Instagram, and like I said, 15 seconds, it's gone.
Yes.
It's old news in 15 seconds. It's like, I'd rather not share it at all.
There you go.
And just keep it for myself. I don't need somebody to go, oh, that's cool, and then, forget about it 5 seconds later.
Right.
Although, the flip side of that is that I have gotten designers and artists from Instagram because I've seen their work. So I'm not saying that it's, it needs to be demonized. It's just that I think coming back to the root of what I'm saying is that, the reason that, I don't have a lot of this stuff around publicly is that, I did sign an NDA, and you
Right.
can get burned on those things if you're not careful.
Oh, I understand. I do.
But yeah, I do have pieces in the shop. I've got a version of my Hatbox Ghost up front, in my studio.
Oh, wow.
And when I say my Hatbox Ghost, I'm talking about a character that looks very different from the one in the film, but it was it's like a museum piece, It's like I think of everything that we make here as like museum pieces. I want them to look just as good in person as they do on the screen.
Mm-hmm. Would you ever do a sort of exhibit?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's kind of what the lobby of my shop is. But in putting together this book, which is tentatively called the Harlownomicon, I'm putting all of my personal work in there, and just sort of linking it up to designs that I had done as a kid.
Oh, I love that.
Everybody here has to be pulling towards the same goal, and that goal is not themselves. It's the betterment of the project, and then because of that, the studio.
Right. Right. Well, you're doing something right because you're working with, you have a group of people that you're still continuing to do projects with. So you've got some sort of chemistry, or what do we want to say? Collaborative. The relationships. Yeah, just the professional relationships with these people. That's great. And it makes for, it's comfortable in that way. You get to know each other's, work expectations and things like that.
Yeah, and you can have fun. You know, it's like if it wasn't fun, you know, certainly there are other ways to make a living.
Right.
You know, and other easier ways to make a living that require working less hours. But, you know, it's fun. You know, the day that it stops being fun, the day that I stop coming to my shop to work on stuff, even when I'm not being paid to do it and actually paying to do it, you know, out of my pocket, then that's the day to retire.
Right.
It's the day to find something else to do. But, I mean, there's too many things that I want to see. You know, there's too many projects I want to see, and nobody's making them, so I got to make them myself.
Fabulous.
You know, and being able to do that now, being in this business for as long as I have been, and, you know, now having the ability to go back to, you know, I'm putting together a sort of a book of my personal work right now, and one of the things that, you know, that struck me as I was compiling photos was that a lot of the characters that I've done for myself have been based on illustrations and designs that I did when I was a kid, you know, and didn't have the skills to translate them, you know, but now I do. You know, now I have those skills, and the designs are just as strong now as I thought they were then. You know, so I can go back to like old sketchbooks that, you know, look like somebody picked up a pencil for the very first time and sketched something out, but the germ of the idea is there.
Yes.
You know, and it's still my aesthetic, and it's still, you know, it's probably even in more pure version, you know, that I can then take and translate into something three-dimensional, or, you know, something three-dimensional and move in, you know, now with the skills and the techniques that I've accumulated over the years.
I love that. This little frustrated boy that wanted to do things is now able to do things.
Yeah.
You've set him free.
It worked in my head, though.
Of course.
Like in my head, it was like, yeah, I know exactly what this thing should look like. That's it. You know, but now they're able to work in everyone else's head because I can translate them.
Nice. That's so good. So my last question about the Haunted Mansion film. Okay, it's probably the most personal question for me. So you spend, I don't know, an average of 4 hours with an actor in a makeup chair, and then you spend, I don't know how many hours on set maintaining the integrity of each character's look.
Right.
So did Walt Disney ever come to mind? Like, he was and is the gold standard, and I'm a huge fan of the man. You know, he's this creative force and visionary, right? And I'm just curious, because like when I go to Disneyland, like I see him, I feel him everywhere. I'm just curious as to how much of his presence is felt like on important projects such as these that uphold his legacy.
I mean, 100%. You know, none of it would exist without him. You know, he picked those artists that are my inspirations, you know. So to be able to do justice to the legacy of Walt Disney, you know, especially on a ride that he never got to see completed, was certainly very forefront, you know. Yeah, I mean, that's true, I think, of, you know, Pirates and Jungle Cruise and, you know, all the memories that he helped create for me when I was a kid.
Wonderful.
You know, I want to kind of, you know, in my small part, I want to help create those memories in sort of a different arena for, you know, a few kids now.
Wonderful. Oh, that makes me so happy to hear you say that. Yeah, because I mean, Disney fans are always Disney fans. They're Disney fans for life, and everybody has their own bond in some way, whether it be, you know, a certain ride or experience or whatever it is, a film. you know, Mickey Mouse is and will always be my favorite. But when you go there and you see all the characters and you're on the attractions, it I don't know. For me, it just you just delve into this world of his imagination and everything that, you know, he pioneered. And I just have so many great memories as a kid, and they still hold true today. So I like what you say about, you know, affecting this generation,
Yeah.
who weren't around when he was around. And I mean, he died before I was born, before you were born, but even still going.
It's getting, you know, it's getting harder and harder to be able to do that, you know, because, you know, people are so desensitized and so jaded now that, you know, you can present something amazing and, you know, like we were talking about with Instagram, 15 seconds later, they've forgotten about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, I mean, it's certainly in my personal artwork and my, you know, in my personal films. Like, if you were to look at my personal film work, you know, like the short form content films that I've done, it's all based on a simpler time. You know, it's based on, you know, horror, comic book horror, you know, and that's kind of what I feel the Haunted Mansion is. It's comic book horror.
Okay, well, wow, you really just gave me more insight to the world of Joel Harlow. Thank you for answering my questions and just taking the time today.
Absolutely, my pleasure.